need to find a new battery for my mouse because it's giving me a bit of a problem. So we're going to try and take a quick break, and then we'll come right back and we'll talk about something completely different. That is, as long as the technology works. Hello, everyone. Sorry. Yes, we're here. We're still here with you. Bear with us. Like I said, we're technically working on a couple of things. And I'm still here, just fixing the technology so that we can better make this work for you. Because technology is not working with us right now, not being our friend. And we want technology as our friend. There we go. All right, so now we're better off. And I can actually use my mouse again so that we can actually smoothly go from issue to issue. So in the last segment, we were talking a lot about Sorry, I was rushing back and forth. We were talking about congressional pay. Is it worth it? Have they earned it? And the answer is, in my opinion, no. And maybe you think that they have. Maybe someone out there says, Congress has done something to earn it. And let me ask, and I will ask, John the Intern, what do you think? Has Congress earned the pay?
I think they've been better than previous years, but at this point, no, I don't think so. I don't see any reason. They're getting paid over $100,000 a year. That's
$174,000.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's the base pay. Some of them make more than that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's insane amount of money to me. I mean, maybe it's because they need multiple places to live in Washington or something like that. But I still don't think that, they deserve that pay. Just taking more from the taxpayer, especially after they just gave tax cuts, that kind of seems counterproductive.
It does seem. Well, remember, Democrats want to take away the tax cuts.
Absolutely.
And, the fact that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is paying $15,000 a month for her apartment now that she is a member of Congress might have something to do with whether or not she has enough money to pay for her bills. I don't pay $15,000 a month for anything. I don't think most people do. You're talking about almost the minimum wage worker's salary per month. That's what she's basically one minimum wage worker in her district per month. Their annual salary is going to her living in an apartment. And I have to think that if you think of it that way, and because you are paying for it, it is your taxes that is going to her paycheck. So that means for every minimum wage worker, 1 year of your work goes to pay for 1 month of her apartment. And she is not unique as members of Congress go. That's kind of upsetting. I mean, I think that's upsetting when you think of it that way.
Right. It's funny because I know her boyfriend also makes quite a bit of money too. I mean,
well, he gets his money from her campaign. He gets paid by her.
He's also head of marketing at homebinder.com, and I can't imagine that.
I believe that's her company.
That's her company?
Yeah. It's being investigated right now. It's a bit fugazi. She gets about $900,000 from her campaign, her re-election campaign, which is it's illegal, and it's being investigated right now.
Right, but even so, I mean, that's not a, low-paying job in any way or shape or form.
No.
So I don't know why she needs another pay raise. Why isn't she spending more time in her district, too? Why does she need a full-time apartment in Washington?
I can't answer that. If Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez would like to come on here and talk with me about it, more than happy. We'll be happy to have her come in here and ask. There are 1,000 questions I have for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. In particular, how do you build a high-speed rail in 10 years, which we can't even do in California for the last 15 to 20 years, just in California. But she wants to make one across the entire country to everywhere in the country in 10 years, and she wants to build one to Hawaii. So please explain how we are building high-speed rail to Hawaii over the Pacific Ocean. Please do explain that to me. There's a number one question I have for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she doesn't seem to like that answer.
I don't think she wants to come on the show. She refused to debate even Ben Shapiro, so I don't...
And Ben is far, far smarter and better than I am, that's for sure. So, yeah, I think the odds of her actually speaking to us are low to none. But, hey, here's the thing. I'm not as smart as Ben Shapiro. I'm fully more than happy to admit I'm not nearly as smart as Ben Shapiro. So she has a better chance of debating with me than with Ben Shapiro. She can take her chances. I don't think it will go well for her because I'm not stupid, but I'm not as smart as Ben Shapiro. And I think she would fare better against me than him. And I still think that would not work out well for her. But let's get into, we're talking a little bit here, but let's actually get into the meat and potatoes here. And obviously, we always look forward to your comments. So if you have a comment, you can text us over at MV Consult on Twitter. You can reach us on Facebook. You can reach us on you can call into the show, 607-242-9247, or or in the comments, if you're seeing this not live, you can always get in touch with us and leave a comment. But please subscribe, share. That is all important. And also, if you happen to be in the Binghamton area, I have mentioned it, but my friends over at the Belmar Pub, the Park Diner, please drop in, check them out. You'll have a great time. It's good food, good drinks, great atmosphere, and great workers. I enjoy it. That is not a paid advertisement. That's because I enjoy them. And you've enjoyed them too, right, John the Intern?
I do. I really enjoy both of them a lot.
Yeah. And we're not getting paid, and John isn't going to lose a raise or something.
No.
Because he doesn't agree with me.
No, absolutely not.
Actually, and a lot of people don't know this, so let me address this really quick as well. John the Intern, what was one of the first things I told you about saying what you think?
Feel free to argue with you on any point that you make.
On any subject, there's no restriction.
At any point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't believe in restricting it. So
no.
If John the Intern or anyone disagrees with me, please tell me. Mm-hmm. I want to hear it. I'm not perfect. I want to hear where I'm getting something wrong, or I didn't understand something, or maybe I'm just misunderstanding it. Mm-hmm. It happens. We're human beings. I'm well read, but that doesn't mean I read everything. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's important. And in fact, talking about that, I want to get into something here because some people may remember that there was a recent article on Voss Political Commentary. Please do check it out. It was published on June 11th of this year, 2019, and it's titled, Will the Next Caravan Bring a Pandemic to the Southern Border? That's a very important issue. It's a big deal. We've been hearing people talk about whether or not vaccines should or shouldn't be allowed. In fact, New York State just this week has made it it's illegal even for your religious preferences to not get vaccinations. Mm-hmm. So they've removed the religious exemption. They've removed the choice from United States citizens, taking away their freedom to decide whether or not they want to be vaccinated. Mm-hmm. And to put this into perspective, we in the United States, polio, measles, mumps, eradicated. They didn't exist. I mean, there was like 0.5% of the population were affected by these things. They were these huge diseases affecting the world did not really exist here. And in many of the first world and second world nations did not exist. They were well contained. So it didn't matter if people were immunized or not. In fact, if you go back a year ago, you didn't know if anyone was vaccinated or not, and you didn't care because it wasn't a deal. It wasn't an issue. But then suddenly down in New York City and a couple of other spots around the nation, there started to be cases and outbreaks of measles, mumps, flu, and a few other infectious diseases. And that was brought up in this article. Because where's this appearing to come from? And John went in and he said, oh, you know what? Mm-hmm. This isn't just something that's happening in the United States. There is an outbreak that is happening of measles and mumps, according to the World Health Organization, throughout the world. In particular, there's a big problem growing in South America. Mm-hmm. And in Venezuela, and we all know how much Bernie Sanders and all the Democratic Socialists love Venezuela, their poster child of socialism. In Venezuela, we see that there was a growth, and you did the article. So, John, was that over a year, or?
I believe, it was over a year since pretty much they had 0 cases almost, and they just bounced up to almost 6,500 cases.
Right, and that came from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Mm-hmm. Robert Lincoln, in fact, had mentioned this. So we suddenly see this increase of disease, and we see that it's also affected Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Chile, that we're seeing cases of measles, we're seeing cases of mumps that are suddenly there that weren't there even a year ago. Mm-hmm.
Specifically in Brazil, they had 0 cases But in 1 year's time, now they're reporting over 10,000 cases of measles alone.
So they went from 0 to 10,000 in 1 year in Brazil, which happens to be right next to Venezuela. So it tells you something. Third world nations, especially when they are in civil turmoil, like a civil war, as socialism tries to go and kill its people because it took away their guns, when we see that, we see disease appear. And people leave those nations en masse, trying to get anywhere but there. People, and that's a fact, people are leaving Venezuela in droves to go anywhere else because they don't want to be in a place where a socialist government is killing them. And they have no food, no medical care, all the things that socialism promised that they would have. Well, no, they're going to be dead instead. So that's why we're seeing these outbreaks. And the problem is that they're coming to the United States. They're coming here, to our country. And they are infecting our country. And here's how bad it gets. Because in March, once this computer catches up with us, in March of this year, 2019, ICE detained 2,000 immigrants because they had the mumps. 2,000 across the country. And if you remember, this year we suddenly had outbreaks of mumps. So you have to ask the question, why did we suddenly have an outbreak of mumps that for decades we have never had? And if you're wondering, well, Mike, how can you know that for sure? Because I watch CNN. Okay? CNN politics. So you can't tell me that I'm picking on somebody. I don't know. This is only from the right. No. CNN. If you think CNN is part of the right, I don't know what to say to you. But CNN reported on March 11th of 2019 that more than 2,000 people in immigration and customs enforcement custody are being quarantined because of an outbreak of mumps and other diseases. So it's not just limited to that. And in fact, the total as of March 7th was 2,287 individuals. So it's not just mumps. We're talking measles, we're talking cholera, we're talking influenza, all the infectious diseases. And these people are coming from countries, predominantly in South America, but not from America. And as you were saying in your research, they're not even coming from Mexico. Is that right?
No, not really. No, it's mostly Honduras and places like that.
I thought in your report you mentioned that it actually went down in Mexico.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, it did.
So we've seen that Mexico, a nation that has its own turmoil, but yet not socialist, is getting control over their infectious disease. South America is bringing it too, because they have to travel through Mexico to get to the United States. That 1,200, 2,200 mile march in those caravans going through the heart of Mexico, you think that might infect a few people? I mean, is that just me?
No, absolutely. And I think, it's going to, as mumps and measles increases in these South American countries, the more likely they are to travel to America, where we offer programs such as the VFC, Vaccines for Children, which will give you free vaccines if doctors will provide you with free vaccines if you are uninsured.
What's the VFC?
Vaccines for Children.
Vaccines for Children. So we have a program that is giving vaccines to these kids because they may be infected. And actually, we know that this is something that's happening not just with that. It also exists in, where is it? Because there's an article also from, this is from The Hill, but you can check it out. It's from yesterday, June 14th of 2019. And in that, we see that, quote, thousands of migrants in ICE custody under quarantine for mumps, chickenpox exposure. Okay, chickenpox? When was the last time you heard anyone talk about chickenpox?
I haven't.
Okay.
Not even when I went to school.
Because no one gets it.
No.
Okay, and according to the information, 39 immigration and customs enforcement, or in other words, ICE detention centers around the country have people who are diagnosed with the infection or have been exposed to mumps and to chickenpox and other diseases. 5,000 people. That's gotta scare you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the worst part about it is no one is reporting where they're coming from.
You know, I didn't notice that no one's saying exactly where. Like, I know that there are some people who are in Bergen County being held by ICE, but I don't know where. You're right. No one says, well, they came from Venezuela.
Honduras, right?
Honduras.
No one is reporting it. Not CNN, not The Hill, not NPR. No one, even on the right, no one is reporting where they're coming from.
Right. So there's no major news media that's saying, hey, we have an outbreak and this outbreak is coming from this original country. Perhaps we should get them some extra vaccines. I mean, think about it from the humanitarian side. If we knew that, and I'm just picking countries at the moment. So let's say Chile. If suddenly there is an outbreak of chickenpox in Chile, let's send some vaccines to Chile. And let Chile, therefore, be able to help its population because they obviously don't have enough vaccines. We'll send doctors, we'll send vaccines, and let's help them out. Their people need it. But if we don't know what country it's coming from, how can we help them? I mean, that's a big deal.
Absolutely.
So I know I was looking through it, but I didn't notice that until you mentioned it, that nobody knows where they're coming from. I got to ask, why? Why don't we know where they're coming from?
I have no idea. Why aren't they reporting it? You're right. From a humanitarian standpoint, it would be much more cost effective to send the vaccines over and let their governments deal with the issue themselves, instead of having people come across the border to try to get vaccines from us.
Yeah, I mean, even if you want to be open, even for the the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, open border, Democratic Socialist crazies. I shouldn't call them crazy. Well, yeah, I do. Anyway, if you want to be part of that crowd, and you're saying, let everyone just come on in. Okay, that means you're saying let the disease come on in, which I disagree with. But wouldn't it make sense for those very same people who are saying, let everyone come in, you don't want them to come in with a disease, because then they're going to infect your kids, which then leads to, and the reaction in New York State and many other states is that, well, we should take away the rights and freedoms of our residents to protect them against this disease that's coming from outside our community, because it's not from New York State. People have been immunized for decades. If it was within New York State, we'd have more cases. We'd have a problem already existing and it would be occurring already. No, these are new. This just happened. Within a year, we've had these cases kick up. At the same time, we've had 15,000 caravans of 15,000 illegal immigrants trying to enter the United States on a regular basis. Do you see a correlation here? Does it not make sense? So is it not in our best interest, according to those Democratic Socialists, that we should send doctors and vaccines to the places that are having these outbreaks, that are sending those people then to our country and infecting our kids? Isn't the answer not to take away the freedoms of people in the United States, but to help the people in their own countries to deal with their own issue? Isn't that fair? Isn't that really democratic? Isn't that the way it should be? We're not trying to control their country. We're going to help their country. We can heal their country. I would rather, if my tax dollars have to go to anything, I would rather have my tax dollars go to giving a vaccine to a bunch of people in a country that is having an outbreak than having to spend my money on building a wall, building up a border, and employing people, and then having to have doctors to take care of and vaccinate those illegals that still get into the country because they're being helped by sanctuary cities and sanctuary states like California, New York State, and many others that are just saying, no, don't worry, laws don't matter. Come on in. Come on in. We're not going to turn you over to anyone in the government. We're going to let you stay here, even if you commit crimes, even if you kill people. We're going to let you stay in the state. And by the way, if you happen to have a disease, it's okay too. I'm sorry, I'm wrong. I don't agree with that. That doesn't make sense to me. Does that make sense to you?
No, it doesn't. Nope.
Because that seems to be stupid, folks. Who would say that? It only makes sense that we would want to fix this. It's kind of like another reason why we need to close the border. It's another reason why we need to ensure that we're not inviting people in or that we are breaking the law by saying, well, the immigration laws don't really matter. We don't have to follow them. Yes, we do. They're laws. They're in place for your safety, for my safety, for the safety of our kids. And when I say safety, it doesn't mean that every single illegal alien is going to run around drunk and kill people, although that happens. What we're saying is, by their own, with no fault of their own, other than, that they had this, they're spreading a communicable disease to other people because they're in our country without vaccinations, without authorization, hiding out, not necessarily in the most sanitary of locations, spreading disease. That's a problem. That's a problem. And that's why we see outbreaks in California, New York. Do you notice all the outbreaks of all these diseases? They tend to be in the same places that we have sanctuary cities. Mm-hmm. Or is that me just missing? Are we seeing outbreaks in the middle of Kansas?
No, not really. But I think, before we make that claim, I would want to see more research and studies to see why that is.
Well, that's on you.
Yeah,
you wrote the first
absolutely.
article.
Absolutely. Just pushing back a little bit.
No, that's
Before
fine.
Making that claim, I'd want to see some more evidence, but it seems likely.
Well, I'm not making the claim. I'm asking the question. I'm asking the question, and and in particular, you were doing research on this. So I'm just trying to understand, because I cannot think of, in Wichita, Kansas, in Minnesota, in Laredo, Texas, Texas maybe, but I'm thinking just places in the middle of America.
Right, the Bible Belt area, yeah, absolutely.
Nashville, Tennessee. I'm not hearing them say that they have this sudden outbreak of measles, mumps, the various other infectious diseases. But I am hearing it in New York State, in particular New York City. I am hearing about it in San Francisco and L.A. I am hearing about it in certain border towns in Texas and in New Mexico. So those are classic sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, with high populations of illegal immigrants where they do not enforce the law. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm crazy, but that seems to be a correlation here. Mm-hmm. You invite them in without being able to be checked by doctors, without authorization by the law. They come in, they're leaving places that have disease, and suddenly we have outbreaks of disease. It seems to be connected. I could be wrong. I will be happy to talk to anybody who has the data on that. If I'm wrong, correct me. But I don't know that I am. But we'll see. All right, so we're going to try another music break real quick, and then we'll be right back in just a moment.